Hello everybody, nice to speak with you. I'm going to be talking about Saturn Pluto because we're going to be moving towards an exact conjunction January 2020, and hopefully discussing this. It will kind of help you to make sense of the world around you, because Saturn and Pluto brings about great societal change, changes in power, changes in structures. For example, we had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 1914 during World War I. 1947, we had a Saturn conjunct Pluto right after World War II ended. The atomic bomb was used, the IMF was developed, which is the International Monetary Fund, was established. That's important. And then again in 1982, we had another Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which was a time of great recession and unemployment. So we're heading into this passage again where there's a new order coming in. And, you know, I just wanted to, Edward Snowden, who is now residing in Russia and leaked all of the intel and the surveillance activity. He was born under a Pluto-Saturn conjunction in Libra. And he, you know, we can see this in charts, too, people who are impacting the very structures of society in a transformational way. And Saturn-Pluto often speaks to, you know, who should be the custodian of resources on the planet. The bank coffers and resources to satisfy one's greed is often Saturn-Pluto. We see more natural disasters around Saturn-Pluto, seismic activity, volcanoes, natural resources, banking and leadership. We're also heading into the Pluto return in the United States chart, which will perfect in 2022. So this can be also seeing some increased rebellion out there in the world, which we're already seeing. Leaving the workplace, firings, demonstrations, reinventing oneself, secession movements within the United States. Don't be surprised if some regions within the country seek to secede from the Union, so to speak. All of these are possibilities and potentials. And, you know, Saturn is always on this planet a testing ground, and its challenges and where we're stretched to grow, reforming ourselves and reforming society and reality. Karma is part of Saturn's domain. Limitation, personal responsibility. Can you handle the energies in a more evolved state? Because we have so much going on, especially now in the age of the internet and social media, where there's so much coming at you all of the time. How do you maintain and hold your own energy and ground and vibration? But, you know, through our restrictions and pain, that also bestows more conscious awareness about your freedom of choice. Chaos can be very creative when things are in a state of dissolving and shifts and changes. People often at the core of their being don't really change unless there's a lot of pressure upon them to do so. So we'll also be seeing this out in the world. It's also about shouldering responsibility. But when this is accompanied by love and wisdom, those structures are meant to uplift. And remember, we're also moving out of the age of Pisces and slowly into this new age of Aquarius. These are 2,000-year cycles. And so the transition is a couple hundred years, right? So, you know, going back to the age of Aries, where was weapons of war being developed, and then the past 2,000 years have been about weaponizing religion. Makes sense when we think about it. But as we're nudging up against this new birthing period of Aquarius with technology and innovation, and can that be held by the whole? all of these healing inventions and energy inventions that would literally eradicate poverty. So while we're seeing all of the change, it is incumbent upon those of you who are awake and conscious to, yes, you're acknowledging the change, but to hold a vision of what can take its place, right? What can take its place on behalf of humanity? Because that's the propulsion system, is energy. When it's an awakening time for people out of heavy control patriarchal mechanisms in order to empower themselves in your personal life. What do you want to see built up as new structures in the world and the big picture down the line? So these are big picture energies, in a trifecta of energies. We're switching ages, the Pluto return in the United States, the Saturn conjunct Pluto. So there's a lot of layer to this. And Pluto is about the fusion of soul and personality, where it's not just an abstract idea, where you are literally letting the urges of the soul dictate your life and the choices you make and the wisdom that you employ in your day-to-day living. Pluto can also be about the death of attachment to desire, which is the biggest area of human misery, being attached to how things need to happen and in the time frame, and surrendering that lower self as you merge with higher self. It's the destruction of structures, and we're seeing this very readily out there in the world. And breaking down selfishness and separateness is the higher calling. And purifying the self, purifying the ego, and some aspect of life that is literally falling away can be a pathway to much deepening soul wisdom and vibration, a birth and rebirth. This is very much a time of that alchemical process of creating something good out of what is viewed as bad. And Pluto Capricorn absolutely challenges the status quo of things and those who hold the power, and the power unequal to their soul development. Willful people, right, is the lower vibration of that, and dominance over others, and really, just eating up all of Earth's resources, which we're also seeing. We need that active intelligence to really come online en masse to bring new structures into what is obviously a state of decay, both within institutions and governmental systems, and certainly banking systems. So a powerful time. Saturn Pluto is also about, the rise of the multinationals, which we are seeing. This was strongly enacted upon in the 70s through the letter of the Chamber of Commerce saying there's too much democracy going on, we need to get a handle on this. And, so it's been a very thin veneer of democracy, and behind that, corporate power. And that just speeded up since 2010 with the passage of Citizens United, which is a crazy title for a bill because it's not about citizens, it's about corporations united. So, but multinationals and corporations are rising to take place of government for sure. Bought and paid for, lobbyists, campaign funding, all of that. It's stronger and it's becoming much more obvious as a political force and a channel for outer planet energy. I think Zuckerberg is interested in running for presidency in 2020, and that makes sense. It's like, why not just really bring out the titans who are, and the IT, these huge IT companies who have a lot more power and are sitting at the table of decision making than probably the general public is aware. But Pluto either empowers or overturns the entrenched status quo and unconscious responses, and we're certainly seeing a lot of unconscious response. And 1982, when Saturn and Pluto last conjuncted, was really the birth of this neoliberalism on the rise and the Great Recession. And it's the empowerment of these hierarchies or a revolution against them. So these are very interesting times. And Saturn conjuncts Pluto again, Capricorn, January 2020 at 22 to 23 degrees of Capricorn all month long. And there's a huge focus in that with the Sun and Mercury in Ceres, what nurtures us, and Mother Earth, and the South Node is transiting through Capricorn. So this is just full of dynamic development. And the South Node in Capricorn is power for power's sake, greed for greed's sake. That North Node in Cancer is about nurturing Earth, family, community involvement, love, reaching out to like-minded others. Food sources is a part of this equation. But Saturn Pluto is about destroying barriers and to enable new forms of social institutions, societal enterprises, to benefit the collective at its highest, rebuilding, regenerating, transforming restrictions and limitations. Some will sink more deeply into despair, pessimism, depression from losses that they've become attached to as far as governmental systems and institutions. It can be very ruthless and authoritarianism. We're already seeing that. Obsessive, suspicious, controlling others. But others rise, through strength and healing and reforming and being psychologically astute, an evolutionary force through this era. It's like the phoenix rising from the ashes and understanding external structures and hard work and stabilizing oneself. It really is incumbent upon everyone to find those inner stabilizers as we're going through these great changes on the planet. Certainly environmentally, politically, with power structures, etc. And, people are getting to the bottom of a lot of things and seeing a lot of truth, which is absolutely brilliant. Now I want to talk about how this can manifest in each of your lives, the dissolving and new structures that need to come in. So for Aries, this is about that 10th house, your career, your bosses, your parents, things that are in a state of change. This may even be about the industry within which you work, because the eclipses through 2019 are heating this up and bringing things in and moving things out. And then there is this integration or this energy confluence that will be occurring in January 2020, where it may even be a little bit easier for you to read the signs of the way forward. But for you personally, you may be finding that a job that you've done is no longer spiritually sustainable, emotionally sustainable, maybe even financially sustainable. Some of you will have industries in a great state of change. This can be about parents in a great state of change, about authority figures that you've grown accustomed to in a great state of change. For Taurus, this is that 9th house, and this has everything to do with foreign countries, immigration, belief systems, your higher consciousness, gathering knowledge, working with media, websites, getting your message out to a bigger picture. This may see stronger focus on traveling for work or bringing into form publishing material. Hopefully some of you aren't dealing with lawsuits and legalities, because it can be a down and out struggle if there's some really negative energy attached to this. But your philosophy of life is in a great state of change and erosion and development and shifts and strengthening and growth. This can be a powerful time for being a teacher out there on the planet. Again, for getting that message out in some frame. And this can be a strong time for traveling, for education. Really, because Saturn loves structure, so this can be formal education avenues that will be important to you 2019 through the 2022 period. And for Gemini, this is your 8th house. So the 8th house is your psychological attachment and the ability to give rebirth to self. This can be big finances. This can be a shift and change in your partner's finances, in your company's finances, budgets, resources. It can be a time for big money on the stock market or where you're putting some of these investments. This may be bringing in and ushering a huge change for psychological healing for you too, to deal with any long-term fears, obsessions even, that shadow side of self that we all carry with us on this planet. So it's hard to tell because there's so much transformational energy here for you, Gemini, that it's off the charts. And for Cancer, this is coming in through your partnerships, your public, experts that you consult with. I have a friend who is going through a lot of heart developments and procedures, so that Saturn Pluto is really playing out with the life and death in the doctors and the people who are servicing this person. And great change and transformation through your personal partnerships, through marriage, through really a lot of change, or a change with a partner where they're going through a lot of change and development. And this has been heating up for you since, '09, Pluto through that 7th house. So transformation energy and the need for new structures that will be coming strongly into being in the January and the 2020 period. For Leo, this is your 6th house. You may have been dealing or contending with health, needing to take care of health unwinding in some way, and needing to really commit and take responsibility for a stronger lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle. I imagine some of you Leos have dealt with pet deaths or intense situations with pets or domestic animals. Maybe even some life or death situations with coworkers or employees. This can also be very transformational energy with those that you hire to service you in some way. Massage therapy, anything that has to do with someone who's providing services to you. But in addition, this may be bringing a lot of deep development with your products, with your services, with how you want to be of service on the planet. And some of you have gone through some health crisis that has deepened your compassion and your learning and your evolution. For Virgo, this is your 5th house of authentic self and expressing yourself and creativity. This is also children and children's affairs. Some of your children may have been or be going through some deep changes, some loss, some grieving, some shifting sands in their life. That is kind of karmic in nature, which will then, as some of this passes, set them on a new trajectory. You may be dealing with intense situations in your love life, or romantic life, or sexual life. Lots of possibilities here. Younger people may be a great source and form of being that change agent in your life. And for Libra, this has been happening in your 4th house. Now there's a real focus on shoring up structures and sustainability, where you live, how you live, the actual residence and its structures. Some of you may be dealing with some structures that are falling apart or have been destroyed in some capacity, and what's the next step in place to that? Some of you have, this has been an ongoing issue with parents or family members who are going through great change themselves. It's not uncommon to lose a parent during this time frame, especially Saturn Pluto conjunct and building up to that. So changing dynamics and realities in both the family life, the history of the family, as well as the actual physical domicile in which you're living. But certainly home and housing and family is a huge area of transformation and change. And as you head into 2020, when Jupiter heads into that fourth house, you can really build on the house of your dreams or the home of your dreams, or really stable, dynamic relationships with those that you live with. For Scorpio, this is your third house. So there's been so much going on with the mind, the transformation of the mind. Yet I also find that there can be unbelievable things going on in your neighborhood or with neighbors, like where you witness a robbery or, or there's a break-in or something is happening of an intense manner that changes your whole reality. For others of you, as this moves through, this can be a time of real self-empowerment with your creative self-expression. This is powerful writing energy, powerful speaking energy, and Saturn's about, let's bring a template to this and get really serious and make a business out of this. So this has to do with your self-expression abilities and bringing in more structure and empowerment with that into the years ahead. Third house may also show up some shifting situations with relatives and siblings, life and death situations, or they're going through a great deal of life change. This can be empowering for education and gathering more knowledge. You want to be careful driving, and computers and all of the telecommunications can be a source of needing to keep things up and running smoothly, as well as some breakdowns and shifts and changes. As I look to Sagittarius, this is your second house, Saturn Pluto. So your very value systems are in a great state of change. And working with your resources in a state of change. Some of you may sell off your resources and not want to be bothered, and you move into a much more non-materialistic state. Others of you may be really acquiring those things that somehow mirror and embody your values. Some of you, this can be a time of some big money making, earning the big bucks. Some of you, this can be the loss of income through the shifts and changes on the political, governmental stage. But regardless, this is a time of absolutely kind of testing yourself, proving yourself to yourself. And you can come through this really being an expert at some level with talents and abilities and strengthening your resources. There may be some loss involved, but then you make adjustments, or you understand that something is in a state of letting go and chapter ending that sets you on a different trajectory, which really more closely mirrors talents and abilities and your value systems. For Cancer, for a Capricorn, this is all about you. You've been going through so much change since '09. That you're entering this rebuilding stage, though, of getting really clear on the superfluous, of things that may be in a state of dying away as far as relationship or your ways of interacting with the world. This may be affecting your health. Again, the first and sixth house are areas in the chart where you have to take good care of the meat body and the physical self. Your whole physicality may be under a great state of change and more responsibility to self-care and how you take care of self. But it's also where you've been transforming so much at the psychological, soul, subconscious levels, that Saturn coming in is really going to give you a strengthening sense of new realities and structures that you absolutely want to build in to take place of that which has been in a state of dissolving and transformation. So you're living through historic times, Capricorn, that is meant to really change you at the individual level and how you, at the very basic level, interact with your whole life and your energy system and how that's transmuted outward in all of the externals. And for Aquarius, You know, this continues in your 12th house. That inner journey of the subconscious mind, of the past, of past lives and the influences that they have in this current life. This is very much a very karmic passage for you, as well as letting go and letting go and letting go some more of structures and realities built up over the past 30 years that are no longer sustainable for you. What has been an earlier time of maybe some obsessive, hard to get a handle on subconscious material, Saturn coming through this 12th house can really bring online more supportive structures of meditation and healing and past life regressions and paying attention, starting a dream journal, getting to the bottom of your own journey. The 12th house is also very creative too. I mean, there's a lot going on for you in your inner life that is changing you at your core. And it does seem to be about the past and also some of the generational inheritance, 12th house, that may be affecting you currently that you're really getting a handle on and integrating and healing in some capacity. And as I speak with Pisces, this is occurring in your 11th house. You've probably come up against some very powerful people in your tribe, in your networking, in your social circles. When Saturn's transiting through that 11th house, there may be a releasing of relationships that are no longer sustainable. You may be a part of, through your connections and through your social media, an agent of change and revolution and rebuilding yourself. You may be aligned with groups or people who are powerful in what they're seeking to restructure or bring online. And you're getting together to work towards some sort of goal or change. So that 11th house is all about your networks and your friendships. You may have been dealing with a friend or dealing with a friend who is going through some tough times. You may be going through a friend who is behaving or it's changing the relationship in a way that's sometimes unfathomable, and you come to realize that this is no longer sustainable. So there's a lot of potential there. And for you, it can also wanting to bring up and out talents and gifts to share with the collective in order to help with this transformational period of time that we're all going through. So I hope this was helpful for you. Much love to you, and I'll speak with you again soon.